In 1862, Frederick Douglass said these words: "Justice is often painted with bandaged eyes. She is described in forensic eloquence as utterly blind to wealth or poverty, high or low, white or black, but a mask of iron, however thick, could never blind American justice when a black man happens to be on trial. It is not so much the business of his enemies to prove him guilty as it is the business of himself to prove his innocence. The reasonable doubt which is usually interposed to save the life and liberty of a white man charged with a crime seldom has any force or effect when a colored man is accused of a crime." Frederick Douglass's somber assessment of the significance of race in the criminal justice system, made more than a century ago, is in many ways still appropriate today. Although there has been much discussion and occasional celebration of racial progress in many aspects of American life, the same cannot be said concerning racial progress in the American criminal justice system. Racial disparity continues to exist, and the level of despair far outdistances the level of hope. In order to look toward solutions to the problem of race in the criminal justice system, we must again look to history. It is not a new phenomenon that people of color have been more severely punished for violating the same law as white Americans, which can be traced back through history. I'll give you a few examples. First, a law established in 1809 making it illegal to steal hogs called for the following punishment. If you were white and convicted, you would receive a penalty of 25 lashes on your bare back or a 10-pound fine, while non-whites, slave and free, would receive 39 lashes on the bare back with no option to pay a fine. In 1697, Pennsylvania passed a death sentence legislation for any black who raped a white woman and castrated them for attempted rape, while a white man who committed the same offense would be fined, whipped, or imprisoned for 1 year. I would note, however, that there was no penalty for raping black women. During Reconstruction, Southern legislatures sought to maintain control of freed slaves by passing criminal laws directed at blacks only. These laws turned offenses that were normally thought of as petty offenses into felonies, and as a result, Southern prisons swelled and became the first time predominantly black. In recent years, cocaine became associated with jazz musicians, Black America's only form of original music, and the penalties remained severe and draconian. It wasn't until the early 1960s and 1970s when cocaine became associated with Hollywood entertainers and was known as the rich man's drug that those penalties were examined. The same was true for marijuana use. When it was associated with communities of color, possession and use of marijuana was a felony. But when it moved into mainstream society, the penalties became less severe. Even today, possession of a small amount of marijuana is a petty misdemeanor. However, in the 40s and 50s, many African American males went to prison for possessing that same small amount, and they were felony convictions that remain on their records even today. The facts are that nearly 4 out of every 10 Americans over the age of 12, about 72 million Americans, have utilized controlled substances. Every day, it is estimated that 100,000 people are arrested on drug-related charges, and at least 10 million Americans require drug treatment programs. The United States is about 5% of the whole world's population, yet we consume 50% of all drugs produced in the world. Further, according to the Department of Health and Human Services, the greatest number of crack users in the United States are white, approximately 2.4 million or 64.4%, compared with 1 million blacks or 26.6% and 400,000 Hispanics or 9.2%. Let me repeat, the majority of crack cocaine users in the United States are white. Yet even with that, the majority of those persons arrested and going to prison for possessing crack cocaine are black and Hispanic. This is why we have the view that crack cocaine is a black problem. It is really an American problem. When we utter the famous words, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. We need to actually mean it, practice it, and apply it to all. Finally, my personal message to you today is, what can you do to make a difference in 2011?